support on this because they're not able to come. Hold on 1 second. Oh, he's already doing it. Chad. Those withdrawers do more than we think pursuers when we're not looking kind of content. Thank you, Chad, for always doing your part. I printed off, I left my computer here so I couldn't, but then I rummaged through papers and I found a sheet of daily red prayers, so I made copies to the house, but I was running out of black ink. I had a printer jam this morning. So I just made enough copies for each house to get one. So since you're doing this together anyway, we wanted to start the morning off with daily red prayers, and also Chad and I, we forget to do this when we're together for the day, oftentimes. And so we have to remember it. We remember more when we depart in the morning than when we're together. So we haven't done it, so we're going to do it in front of you, and then we're going to give you a chance to do it. But we wanted to briefly talk about just the other 2 points on this page. So again, yesterday we walked you through step 1, which is to say, I pray for your heart, your mind, and our relationship. And that we do out loud together in front of each other pretty quickly. But then there's a second and third part. If you want to try to incorporate this into your relationship, we strongly recommend it. And that is that when you're away, once you're on your own and you think about your spouse, just pray general forgiveness. God, if there's anything I'm harboring against my spouse, just reveal it to me so that I can work on forgiving it. If it's a conversation I need to come back to, give me the courage to have that conversation. Or on the withdrawer side, if it's a conversation I need to come back to staying, give me the courage to engage that. You know, for both sides, it's the same. And then praying blessings over your spouse. Just to say, God, be with Chad today. Just bless his day and let him know that you're present in his life. That's the idea of both of those. And so not only are we praying together, but those other 2 parts are putting your heart and your mind in a posture of love and care and humility towards your spouse. And if you make that a constant practice, it really is a lot easier to come back and revisit those rocky moments, and to come back and repair if there's been a breach, or even connect better, because we're making an intentional effort to think good about our spouse when the cycle is working against that motivation, because the cycle usually puts us in a place where we're thinking negative or bad about our spouse. And so this is just an offensive move that we wanted to give you.
Not offensive, but
Oh, sorry.
yeah, I think you said it right. I'm just saying.
Offensive.
Yeah, yes. We're on offense. We're trying to take ground, do well, fight each other.
I see this Chiefs thing over there, and I'm like, there's something happening on, and I just like, I can feel it. So we got some offensive. I'm going to mention football at least 6 times today. I apologize for those who aren't on.
So here, we'll do this right now, and then we'll have you all do it. God, please be with Angel today. Protect our heart and mind, protect our marriage. Help us just to do what you want us to do today. Help us to stay focused and on task.
God be with Chad today. Protect his heart, protect his mind, protect our marriage in Jesus' name.
Now we want y'all to pray for each other again. And it takes no time, so we'll give you like a minute. Go.
All right. Okay, picking up midway through yesterday's conversation for you, and this is the holy tight conversation. Where the other conversation, we're just kind of saying, hey, you guys are capable of fighting. You probably have fought. The fights get ugly. Here's why they get even uglier. Here's how you go back to a fight. Now we're going to kind of shift into what we really deep down long for in relationship, if we can access it and acknowledge it. And that's what we want to try to create safety today to do, is to kind of shift in the midst of this cycle, what Chad said yesterday. The reason these fights sometimes get so heated is because we care so much. And what we want to do is try to access that deeper care today, that deeper longing of what I really want in view of the cycle. In order for us to get to this, we have to recognize the part we play. I have to recognize as a pursuer, sometimes I feel like I'm too much. Sometimes I feel like I take up all the space in the room. Sometimes I'm a puffer fish. Sometimes I'm critical. Sometimes I feel like an ad. Sometimes I feel like if he would just do his part, it would be so hard. If he could just, all he has to do is put his shoes away, throw the toothpicks in the trash, make the bed every now and then if I forget, help me with Avery. The list goes on and on, by the way.
So that's all I have to do is just all those things, right? And then she'll feel better about it.
Then I'll remember the other things I meant to put on the list, if I'm not as distracted as the first ones, right?
But you said something I think is worth mentioning. Yesterday really was, except for the very last, that hold me tight conversation, almost all of that is defense. Right, we're saying
when our body is in defensive strategy.
Well, yeah, it's a defensive move for a relationship too. Like it's like, okay, we're trying to fight against the cycle, and this is what I do, and we have these things that have attacked us and hurt us, and we have the way that we've learned to interact with each other, and how we hurt each other, right? And so all that we talked about yesterday is how do we fight against what you come to this place with, right? Like how do we stop that? How do we contain that? How do we deal with that even? In some ways. And today, and hold me tight, a little bit of what we did yesterday, is really like offensive. It's like, how do we nurture this relationship? How do we repair and kind of fix the places we've been hurt? How do we make a repair? I think of it, so I kind of think about today as a little bit of more offensive moves, like kind of like, how do we really build our relationship into something we want it to be? Even sex, right? Like, how do we get that to the place we want it? Like, I think all these things we're talking about today are gonna be like, we're pushing into and trying to really engage with the best parts of the relationship. And I know forgiveness is in today too, so if there's big wounds and injuries, but you really can't do forgiveness. You can't do any of that unless you can contain the nasty cycles that show up. Because I can't forgive Angela if we just jump right back into an explosive fight, right? So when we talk about forgiveness today, that's something that I want to say. It's like, you can't really do forgiveness if you can't slow down a cycle. Like you can't do the work today. In some ways, it's good to have the notes about it, but some of the work can't happen if you're in the midst of angry, bite, yuck, right? Same thing. I can't reveal my deepest parts of myself to Angela if I still think we're in a defensive kind of critical cycle. We're in a demon dialogue, as Sue Johnson would put it. So we have to be able to slow that down before we can really get to the best, deepest parts of a relationship.
So this conversation really is divided into two parts. We have to be able to acknowledge and access what our bodies might be telling us we're afraid of. So when we get into an interaction and he slow blinks, or I know the tone goes wrong, or when on his side of it, he sees my lips purse or my dinosaur can come out, or whatever that cue is, our body goes into this like, uh-oh, threat response. And that's usually when something internally goes, this isn't as secure as I need it to be right now. As a matter of fact, it's insecure and I don't know how this is going to go. And what we want to try to do is really slow that down, almost like if we're watching a movie and it's 24 frames a second. That's old school film, by the way. Now digital is a little bit different than that, but we're breaking it down to a frame by frame. In that moment, when he slow blinks, currently in the present interaction of him slow blinking, I think I'm losing him in this conversation. But something deeper happens in my body. Something that's a little bit more urgent that goes, I might be losing him in this conversation, but what if this is the beginning of him going away forever? And I know that there's this part that goes, come on, we don't have to make it so dramatic. Can't we just stay in just a little fight we're having? But our bodies actually are trying to prevent us from being hurt. And so it actually is considering worst case scenario. It's an underlying motivation. So it makes sense when he slow blinks that my body feels more urgent. Pursuers, right? This energy goes, fight harder for this. So we escalate a little bit more. And it makes sense when he sees I'm getting more escalated on his side goes, oh my goodness, this is getting even more intense. And if I stay in this, it could really blow up. And it could be the biggest blow up and it could end us. I better not stay in this. This is going to hurt our relationship. And the safest thing to do right now for our long-term relationship is to back out of this because I don't want this to be the end. And so what we're really trying to do is go, I wonder if we could slow down in the midst of that uh-oh moment and really try to unpack, what is your catastrophic fear? What is the biggest thing you're afraid of if things get worse? Things don't come back to a good place. Things don't get resolved. And so first, individually, it's, I wonder what I'm possibly afraid of. And once we can acknowledge that, then here comes kind of the big ask that's new for us, is to be able to turn to him and share that so that he understands what's happening for him and ask for a need to be met in that space. And this is different than, I need you to do the dishes. That's not the need that needs to be met. The dishes are the content. The need is about my security and about what I think about our relationship. So I want to acknowledge what we are asking is a stretch. When do we think about those catastrophic fears? Not daily. So we're asking you to do something right now that's not a usual thing. And now that you've acknowledged it, we're asking you to consider what you might need there, also brand new. And then we're going to ask you to share it, also terrifying. And now your partner, we're hoping, is going to be able to respond. Why would you respond? You don't even know what to do there.
I just found this information
I'm
out.
just learning that you're afraid I'm going to leave you because I didn't do the dishes or whatever, you know.
And is it even, who in here, I'm gonna ask this. Does anybody right now, you have to raise your hands, have dishes in their sink that they wish they had gotten done? I do.
I do.
We do.
I'm like,
I got
I'll
up
get
this
it all
morning.
Sunday
I got up
afternoon.
this morning and I was making coffee and normally our sink is empty. Y'all, I'm not that clean, but Angela is. And I've adopted some of her habits that are probably really great, but like normally we have the sink clean.
I have this funny little thing because after yesterday's conference, all the withdrawals went home and did the dishes.
I did not do that, but maybe I feel like I should have. I don't know. But I'm like, I am not stressed and we are not in a fight because of the dishes. So I know that it's not really about the dishes, right? Like I'm like, we can have these interactions and it's like some days it feels pretty catastrophic. Oh my gosh, the house is messed with the dishes. Right?
It's a weird thing that makes it pretty unpredictable because now he's seen times when there's dishes in the sink and the dishes don't mean anything. But sometimes the dishes mean something. And doesn't that feel pretty unfair? Like, how are you supposed to know when they mean something and when they don't?
And not just to her, to me too.
Yeah.
Right?
There's
Sometimes I care about that one.
There's a pursue withdraw fight that a friend of ours and his spouse did that we often use in some of our seminars. And it's that she texted him and said, hey, I need you to bring home some milk on your way home. And he was busy and he said, okay. And he comes home, walks in the door and she says, did you get the milk? And he turns and just leaves. Or he goes up to his office with me because did he get the milk? No. And so the pursuer, his wife, is pretty frustrated at him because he failed her again. And we kind of laugh because what happens if the withdrawer, let's say, is home and says, hey, we're out of milk, can you get some milk? And the pursuer's like, yes. And the pursuer walks in the door and the withdrawer says, did you get the milk? And the pursuer says, no.
Nothing
happened.
Or the withdrawer goes and gets it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't that feel unfair on both sides? And so that's the part of this that is just a little bit tricky. Is if we're trying to manage the content, we're gonna miss.
You can't have the dishes done enough. For really, if we're thinking about what Angela just said, she's like, my worst fear is I'm gonna be left because I'm too much, I'm too needy, I'm too crazy, or whatever she says. I'm not saying anybody else. If that's her worst fear, and then she's like, the dishes aren't done, and I need the dishes done, and I can't do the dishes, and someone asks me about the dishes. If I go do the dishes, is that gonna address her heart?
No.
We just missed it. And does she know that in that moment? No, she doesn't. You don't know, right? She's going because that's why she's asking. They never were. They never are. You should now. Don't get me wrong. You should do your dishes. This is public service. It's not good to have dishes.
So,
but
this is individually unique. You have to figure out who you are and why you're motivated. But as we've been doing modeling out of self, let me say for me, when I am working the job that I work in managing, getting Avery, and he's a huge help for Avery, and we divide that too, but I pick her up from school, and then I have her, and then I do the laundry, and then I do this, and if I get behind, and I have to hustle to get it all done, and I've just got the dishes done, and I'm getting dinner ready, and in that moment, it's not my most secure day, not my fault it is, because sometimes I feel insecure. He comes home and he puts the cup beside the empty sink.
And I don't rinse it out, or I don't.
In that moment, something in me goes, do you not see how hard I work today to get it all done? You must not even care about what I do. Now, do I verbalize that to him? No. This is what I verbalized in the funny video yesterday. Really, with the cup right beside the sink? So he sees criticism and frustration when deep down I'm like, oh, you don't see how hard I'm working. Flip it on the other side. This is a withdrawal problem too.
I'll do that part.
On his side,
Right. But I walk in, I've been working, let's say I work 10 hours that day. It's kind of a long day, but it's not unheard of for me. I walk in, set the cup down, I'm tired. Things have been hard at work. And I'm walking away and she goes, really with the cup? And I'm like, I can't get it right either. I can't fix anything, can I? I'd really like to be able to get something right in my life. And I come in and the very first thing I do is screw it up again. Now I'm home, the place I really want to be, by the way. Maybe I don't verbalize it enough, or maybe I don't, because I'm not as expressive as maybe I even should be. But I'm like, I set this down and I get this immediate message that says, I'm getting it wrong.
what's wrong with you?
I'm failing. I'm messed up. And it's pretty quick that it hits me. I think I talk to a lot of withdrawers, and a lot of times they say, I just feel like I'm the kid who just got caught with my hand in the cookie jar or something. Like, oh, I'm in trouble all of a sudden, right? And it's like, that sucks. And it really isn't. This is the worst part for me anyway. The cup, I want it done. I'm like, she's right. I kind of believe the bad thing about it. Like, I am in trouble. I did do that wrong, and I did. There are times that it's not always like this, right? It's not, sometimes I'm like, oh, come on. You got 3 pairs of shoes on the floor by your side of the bed. What are you talking about? But I'm like, sometimes it really does kind of land in a place where I am wrong and she is right and I am wrong.
Let's talk for just a second
And the
about
fear is that I'm gonna lose this. And the way that I kind of justify myself at work and everywhere else is by what I do, right? If I show up and the couples like in a bad space, I'm trying to work with them, like, we're just gonna hang out, good luck. Let them argue and fight, how's that go? They don't come back and I fail, right? I can't provide for my family. And if I come home and I see this message, I'm like, now here I am failing again. A lot of times, pursuers and withdrawers, but I think withdrawers really internalize their identity around their performance, right? And so it's like, if I am not doing a really good job, if I'm not winning, then I'm failing. And that's about me. I am a problem. That hurts at a different level than just the cup thing. Are you guys following that?
the fantasy.
Everybody
is
should
we
have
say,
done it.
right? The fantasy, or let's say the ideal situation is I clean the house. He comes home and goes, look at this house. It looks so good. You must have worked so hard today. And I say, I did. Thanks for noticing. Also, thanks for working so hard for our family to provide. I really appreciate you. Isn't that lovely?
I can't even really imagine it. It probably should happen. If you guys do that, I'm proud of you.
And here's the thing though, when I say it, something inside you goes, oh, that is actually how I feel. I am appreciative of what he does for our family. And he is appreciative that I work hard at the house.
This morning we were coming here and I'm like, man, I really like that you make meals most of the time. Like, I'm like, we don't eat out as much as we used to. I think COVID did something for us. Like, we stayed home and we're both actually really good cooks. Like, I think, I mean, we can make good food. And so I'm like, yeah. And so I'm like, man, I like that you make food. Like, it's weird.
Just random
I
thought. He's like, by the
random
way,
thought.
this is it. We're talking about the carbons. He's like, by the way, non-sequitur. I really like that you can do it. No. And I'm sitting there thinking, I don't even know. Am I supposed to defend myself? Did I not clean up at home last week? Did I get something wrong? What? Because it's so uncommon for us to really identify what's going right. The parts we do right, we just do them, and we don't really acknowledge that we're doing them. Chad is never like, wait a minute, every day. No,
That I don't care about.
no. be intentional about this mood. That when something happens or we get sideways, we can pause and we can say, when I go to grab this cup, I have a moment where I go, what do I really need here? To criticize my husband or to ask for him to see the work that I've done? And sometimes we start to learn how to just slightly shift and ask for the need to be met. And I say, you know what, Chad, it's really hard when you put that cup aside to sink, because I worked really hard to try to get it all done today, and that sends me a message that I don't matter. And I know I matter, I just right now in this moment, I get pretty frustrated with you. That lands way better than criticizing him about the cup. And even if he's in a bad place, usually he can muster up enough energy to say, man, I had a hard day too. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to send you that message. I do care about you. I'm working hard too, and sometimes I feel missed. And now we're having a different conversation. We're having conversations about fears and longings. And those conversations draw us closer to each other. When I come at Chad with this tone, with my heart, with my hurts, he steps towards me. When he comes at me with his fears of failing, apologizing, he didn't need to get it wrong, he wants to get it right for me. He had a hard day too. I'm missing him and he misses me. I come towards him and we have a moment to connect. And you know what's interesting? It doesn't have to be a 12-hour hug and passionate sex after and everything's fantastic. Sometimes it can just be 3 minutes. I see you and you appreciate me and I appreciate you. That's it. Now I'm like, all right, I can go a whole week on that kind of appreciation. It's only a tiny little bit that we need to be seen every now and then, because that builds security. And out of the secure place, I have the ability to get a whole lot more done, because my body isn't working so hard to protect that insecure place. And so this is about asking our partner to join us in those places where we feel a little bit insecure. Are you stretching or do you have? Oh, go.
I think I struggle with that because I've done this wrong for so long. And it's like if I start doing it the right way, it's gonna look fake, or it's gonna look like he's just trying to shake a box. And we even get into arguments over stuff we learned in counseling. She'll tell me, well, why aren't you using that? We learned that in counseling. And it starts a whole.
Like a good first.
It starts a dumpster.
Well, hold on, let me just say this. You guys, all of us have been doing this enough.
Yeah.
Like, so that's not we, like everybody has, I almost started the day like this, but it's a good point. This isn't intentional, I'm gonna change something. Like, we're not, and I know that this isn't like mystical counseling, oh, the romance has just changed. I'm like, no, really, for me, it's a cognitive move that says, I am gonna try to do some of these things differently. And they're gonna feel weird.
Yeah.
If I come in the house and I say, and this is kind of how it starts, honestly. And I want to talk to you about something that feels, it's weird for me to talk about this, right? Like, but I'm gonna try to do something. Do you have time to talk to me? She might say yes or no.
Pause. Pursuers, if your withdrawal is like, I'd like to talk to you about something that feels kind of weird for me. Are you in? Yes. Heck yes, you are.
They say that, but sometimes there's a kid or something in the stove,
Yeah.
or somebody else coming over, or so. But yes, they want to be.
And also a little bit of a fear, like, uh-oh, are you about to criticize me? Because I tried really hard to get a fight. I don't know if I can get that, but I'm intrigued at least. Yes.
But this we're not doing. If I'm not in a cycle, right? I'm not in a deep dialogue. There's not a bunch of raw spots already triggered. We're not trying to figure out what we do. If you guys have already kind of done some of this, and you're going, I want to get home and I want to offensively use my relationship for something good so that I can feel better. That should feel weird. And it's crazy that it should feel weird, but it should feel weird.
Surprising.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna go through this on my answer. But if I come in and I go, I want to talk to you about something, but it's hard for me to talk about it. You know, and I'll use a hard comment. I know that we've been spending more money, and I want you to be able to get everything you want, but inside me, I've got this tension that just goes, am I doing enough? Can I measure up enough? Can I be enough? And I feel like I'm failing you guys somehow because I don't make enough money, because you can't do all you want. Like, I've done some work on my own before I got there, right? That wasn't just, hey, what are you doing buying more furniture or whatever. I'm like,
No,
right? I'm digging into that, and then she can, and that feels weird, right? Because I'm talking about me, not her.
pursuers, when they make the effort to try a different strategy, then it's on us to not default to our old strategy.
Withdrawers also, by the way.
In that moment, it is not time. If he's sharing his fear and asking for the need to be met, the need that he needs me to meet is not, well, that's why it's so important that you stay on the budget that we talked about. Not the right move there. At that point, it is not my job to manage him. At that point, it is my, what he's hoping for, job to ask him what he needs from me. And sometimes when he says, hey, I need to talk to you about something, I will say, okay, give me some insight. What do you need from me? And he'll say, just listen, don't fix. And I do the same for him. I don't need you to fix this. I just need you to hear me. That's great insight to give your partner a little bit of space to go, okay, I don't know what to do here. Because sometimes if he says that, I think, uh-oh, what's my next move? What's my role? Pursuers, withdrawers do too. We'd like to know what the next move is. And if he's about to run an audible, football, also in house, if he's about to run a play in the moment that I'm not used to, that'd be really nice if I could have a little insight on what my part was. So when he says that, if I find my body getting surprised, and in this slide particularly, it's about really focusing on, it says the felt sense in your body. When he says that, something happens to me and I go, like maybe I'm surprised. Maybe I go into my head. Maybe it goes into my gut. Maybe I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get in trouble. Be alert. Maybe I get anxious. And there are times when he's like, hey, I want to talk to you. And I'm like, uh-oh, I can feel the anxiety coming up and I feel like I'm in an insecure place and I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna be able to meet your needs there. That's good insight for him also. So when he says that, I can say, okay, thank you for sharing. You guys already have that phrase memorized. It's a great phrase in your relationship also. What do you need from me right now? And so
You'll start to know what they need. Like, everything's awkward the first time you do it. Like,
the 10th time you do it, it's still probably awkward. You've been doing the other way your whole life.
yeah. And you'll probably default to the other way for a long, long time. And again, we're only talking about 30% of the time. We're not talking about all of the time, right? We're saying if we can get this right, if you can have these conversations, I don't know how often you need to have them, but in your life, if you can have them more often than you do right now, you're going to win. You're going to align more. You're going to have a better relationship overall. And so really that's what we're saying. It's like, get to the heart of what hurts. And you kind of have to do that on your own. I have to let myself go to the painful place. And then I have to go, hey, I want to talk to you about something that's pretty important. And then I have to go, this is what I'm seeing about me. Which I didn't ever do that anywhere else. Like I was always like, ooh, that's painful and I don't like this piece of me and I'm gonna go hide it and try to outperform it. And honestly, I'm pretty good at it. I'm pretty good at outperforming my pain.
In that moment,
But this is a better way.
when he lets me in, he doesn't need a life coach, he doesn't need a counselor, and he doesn't, you know what he needs? Somebody that says, I'm here with you. He just needs my presence. The same thing pursuers that we need from our withdrawers when we're in that space. You had a question, and you had a question. I think your spouse is off of his. Did you want to say something?
Mine was just kind of like he was saying. He said, can we talk or have something to talk about? There's another way of saying that because my pursuer has specifically said, I don't like that phrase.
Yeah.
Do something else.
You know, that's super valid what you're bringing up because withdrawers rarely say, I need to bring something to you or I have something to talk about. Can we talk? Pursuers maybe say that 3 times a day. We need to talk. Can we talk? If I send Chad a text in the morning that says, hey, I know that you got off, we were busy this morning, but when you get home, I'd really love to have a talk with you. How's that way, withdrawer? No, you don't like that.
I had somebody the other day say, don't send me a message when I can't do anything about it.
So, you know what, for pursuer side, we're not saying, you know, I need to talk to you about the money you've been spending. And, you know, when we know we're not in a trying to manage the outcome, controlling, critical, feeling too much. And even if we are in that space, if I lead with that and tell them where I'm at, that at least gives an insight. But if I want to have a deeper conversation, I just say that, like, hey, something has really been stirring around in my head and heart, and I need you to join me in that space because I need help with it.
And let me say this too.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
I'm gonna follow that up, because it's like, if she says, I'm insecure right now, and I want to share with you about my heart and how I'm questioning myself. It's different than, I need to talk to you about what's been going on with us or you, right? The I need to talk to you, if it's other focused, I'm like, all of us want to go,
Yeah.
get in that conversation, right? But if it's like, and that's where it's like, these sides are, and again, I'm using these drawings, but I'm like, that side is more like other focused, kind of defensive. Yuck, I'm trying to manage you or manage outcomes of what you or I might do. And I'm saying over here, it's more like self-focused. How can we fight for our relationship? And I'm gonna bring my full self to the table and say, this is where my pain is. I'm hurting in this way.
We'll talk about this a
We do
little
that
bit.
CR and open share, we say we're gonna do it with our.
And it's way riskier with your spouse, by the way.
Yeah.
You know why? Because guess what? I love Rodney Holmes, a good friend of mine, right? And he and I can talk about anything. And sometimes we do both. I mean, we have a great, but I'm not scared to lose Rodney Holmes from the way that I'm scared to lose Angela. Right? Because I live with Angela. We do all kinds of things together that me and Rodney will never do, I promise. Yeah. but this is where we have a kid together. We own a house together. If I come home and I say, oh, I feel like I'm not measuring up and something's wrong with me, I might be a failure. And she goes, oh gosh, I gotta get out of this and get this. She leaves me over, like, because that's kind of my fear if I'm not measuring up, right? Is that I'm gonna lose something. I'm gonna lose her. I'm gonna lose this relationship. I'm not gonna be seen the way I want to be seen. Right? I want her to want me. And the way I've always been wanted is by my performance. And so it's like, it's tricky for me to share this with Angela because she does, and again, this is a weird thing, because she matters so much. It's easier to do it in open share than it is with somebody who's, not to say that if you're in open share together, you don't matter to each other. I'm sure you do, but you don't as much as your spouse. And you should.
I want to point out how completely unfair this cycle is to both sides. Because his fear as a withdrawer is, I'm going to get it wrong for you. And I'm trying my best. I would rather not show up or leave than show up and fail. And pursuers are also afraid that you're going to fail me. Something in me says, I need you to get it right for me. And in my mind, here are all the ways you can get it right. And withdrawers are like, I'm trying to get it right for you, but here are all the ways that I can get it wrong. I mean, literally, they push on each other. So when a pursuer tries to, this ask for your need to be met, really has to be in a drop the elevator down deeper place. The need can't be content, because I will ask for things he's trying to meet, and he will never be able to meet all the content needs. And if I'm really honest with myself, my strategy is I'll just feel better if the house is clean, the dishes are done, the shoes are put away, the checklist, we're on task financially, and if we're managing our okayness with all the structure, we're missing it. Right? You guys learn in other capacities that that's also codependency. And so there's a trap here, because God designed us to have interdependency. God did not design me to be self-reliant. He designed me to be God-reliant and to need others. And needing Chad is not codependent. But trying to manage Chad's tasks and behaviors so that I feel okay,
That is good.
But instead I can say, hey, this is unfair on you, but for some reason, when the dishes aren't done and the bed is a mess and we're 4 loads behind on laundry and I'm tripping over your shoes, it is so chaotic in my heart and head. I just can't, it's hard for me to connect with you, and I just start thinking bad things about us, I think bad things about you, that is a different conversation than do all the things and we'll be okay. Just do the things I'm asking you to do. That's what I need you to do. The things. All the things. What things? Things I tell you every day. I'll put what's in the fridge. I come home, all the things are checked, and I'm like, oh, there were 2 more things. I forgot to put them on the list.
You were doing those things, and now you're doing things that you forgot things you were doing, right?
But
You
if
think
I,
about this, and I think I mentioned Bezos or something yesterday, I can't remember, but these guys with billions of dollars, right? And they have housekeepers and butler and everybody, they have people to do all the list. Are they happy?
No.
it depends. If they have somebody that's working for me, they have a chance to be.
But they're not happy because the list is done,
No.
right? And we had this talk and we're like, well, let's get somebody to help with this or help with that or help with the lawn or help with it. And it's like, is that gonna work? No, it's not gonna. I mean, she says, yeah. I'm like, no, it won't.
I keep saying yeah, like I'm ready
It won't.
to
Because it's not, I'm never gonna meet her heart
I do want to
by
validate.
just doing the need.
I want to validate this for those who are thinking it. When the dishes are done and the house is clean and the shoes are put away and he's done some of the tasks, doesn't it feel better?
Yeah,
It does. So
sure.
we cannot miss that it does feel better. The question is, if we don't get all of it done, what does that say about me? Because that is the thing that we're really trying to get to here. There are days where we can get it all done, and it does. He likes the house clean. I like the house clean. I find that even my 5-year-old likes her room more when all the toys are right where they go. There is something about that space that feels nice. We can't deny that. But underneath that, there is still this fear that if we don't maintain all this niceness, I'm not going to feel okay. And that's where we need comfort and assurance. So if I'm going to comfort, if what I'm finding comfort in is a clean house, then I'm looking to be comforted from the wrong things.
What does a clean house say about you? Is another way to ask this question, right? If my house and all this stuff is put together just right.
And by the way, that's just the content. Fill it in with your own content.
Whatever that thing is for you.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but if all the stuff is put together and right, what does that mean for if Angela, not this is stereotypes, but if Angela's the one who generally takes care of the house and all this stuff, and for her, the house is kind of her domain sort of. If all that is done, what does that say about her?
That I'm succeeding.
She's getting it right.
And I've learned when I'm succeeding, I'm more lovable than when I'm not succeeding.
Right? And so when the house is not put together, she feels like she's not succeeding. Somehow she also, even though we say, look, and she needs to manage it, right? She's failing, she's messed up, she's not going to be as lovable. And so then now she's in a real bind.
And if
Because, hold on a second. She's in a real bind because if she over manages, what does she think about herself? I'm too crazy, I'm too much, I ask too much, I don't want to have to tell you this, right? And if she doesn't over manage, what's she also loving? Well, how can I be lovable if it's like this?
And can I even say, here's the real kicker? If I'm overwhelmed and I've gotten to the place where I can't get all the things done that I want to get done, even if I get to the place where I say, I need you to do this just to help me because I'm so behind, him doing the dishes sends me what signal? I still didn't get it all done. So it's slightly comforting and also slightly shame producing and makes me feel like I'm inadequate. The task and the content will never win the deeper longing we have for connection. Let me go to her first because she had a question. Do you still have the question or have we
I
answered
do,
it?
it's a little bit, I don't want to throw you off topic, but I'm wondering when you say pursue or withdraw, we keep talking about this, it almost seems like some of the things you described, is it more like the type A person, type B laid back, and maybe those two come together? I mean, kind of being too much and wanting everything just right versus
Let's take all of those. Where are you on the Enneagram? Are you an ENFJ or an NFP? Are you an extrovert or an introvert? Like all of those kind of are ways for us to try to identify who we are, to make sense of who we are. So you can say, let's say I'm a type A personality, that's fine. what, if we go into the deeper motivation, that's the thing. If a type A personality, the person who likes to get it all done, the overachiever, doesn't overachieve and doesn't get it all done, what do they believe about themselves? You know, so it's not, a lot of those personalities are like, here's what I do. But what we want to do is sink underneath that and ask yourself, if you for some reason couldn't get it all done or don't get it all done, what we start to believe about ourselves in that space is that I'm failing and I don't like myself here. There's no way he could love me here. And so in that moment, that comfort could be, hey, I'm afraid that you're going to see that I'm not getting it all done and I'm a failure. And I don't love myself. How could you possibly love me? Is there any way that you could give me some assurance that I'm so lovable? That comforts that need. Now, do we still have a little bit of that anxiety going, how do I trust this? It's brand new. It's like what he's saying. No, there's going to be mistrust there. There's still a part of me that thinks this is comforting and also the dishes still need doing. So this is going to take some time to really rest in that Chad assuring me that he loves me when I don't get it all done is more comforting than managing the dishes. And I have to train my body for that shift.
And I want to say, like, it is way more likely that I'll do the dishes with a happy, joyful attitude, whatever you want. When she tells me, oh my gosh, blah, 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 I just feel like, look, I'm not getting it done. And I've always had to perform and succeed to be loved. And right now it feels nasty. And so I need somebody to see this and tell me that they love me, even though I'm not getting it done. And I'm like, I love you, and the dishes aren't hard for me, and I love to do the dishes right after I comfort you. You know, like, we're gonna get the things done. All the research, and this is gonna be a fast little thing on research, and then we gotta get you guys to
The conversation.
to the actual thing. And I'll answer the question.
Yeah,
also.
yeah.
But I'm like, all the research says, you know, when you're most productive, most creative, you live longer, you enjoy life more, you enjoy sex more, all those things. I mean, there's more, right? Your better survival rates with cancer, right? Is when you're in a safe, connected relationship and you can have conversations about your deepest fears and somebody responds to it. So I guarantee I can do better dishes when we've done this.
No
I'm
one
not
at the
yelling at
end-
anybody. I'm like, literally, it works.
No one at the end of their life ever said, man, I wish I would have done sport dishes.
If that kitchen had been clean.
But they do say, man, I wish I would have connected. Man, I wish I could have been seen. Man, I wish I would have responded differently to my family member or my loved one. The connection is what we long for. Okay, last question.
We've had this conversation, and I may be a weird consumer, but our house has been under remodeling. So talk about gaps. And so, but once I was able to say to him, this is how it's making me feel, and this is why it's whatever, even though it wasn't there yet, the house was not clean, there's still stuff everywhere, it's still mess. I didn't feel that was all I needed, was for us to have a connection to understand that that's how it's making me feel, and him acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And then the mess didn't bother me like it did.
Yeah.
When I was not expressing that.
Yeah.
So that I get what you're saying. because-
When you haven't had the experience you're describing, it's hard to know that it's going to feel good. But
Right.
when you start experiencing it, you start to go, oh, that does actually feel comforting.
He has a question.
Oh,
I think he raised his hand for you. He's trying to- I'm reading. Picking this up.
Okay, so
Let's keep
what we
moving.
want to do is show you these two moves that we're going to have you. So what we're going to do is, first you got to tune into yourself, kind of like what we did yesterday, but I'm like, what do you feel? What are you thinking? How do you feel connected? You have got to start paying attention to the cues that your body is giving you. And this is hard. This is hard because with drawers, you've been trained your whole life to go away from those feelings. And pursuers, you've been trained your whole life to manage everything else to avoid those feelings.
Or to address it in a secondary way.
Yeah.
Outside yourself, right?
So we're asking you guys to set aside those tendencies and strategies and actually come to that space where it feels a little bit unsteady. And to ask yourself what that feels like and what is it that feels unsteady. So tune in when deep within I feel that fear. What I need you to do, or what I need from you is. And that's what we're asking you guys to do in this conversation. So it's a two-part. First part one, if you pull out from your front pocket conversation 4. In the first part of this exercise, we're asking you to share some of our underlying fears. So when distress and conflict are present in your relationship and your mind can explore really bad scenarios, what are you afraid might happen in your relationship if things get worse? In those moments of distress, the story I tell myself about me. This is what I think I am. This is what I think my partner sees me as, or this is what I think about myself. Okay, so we want to finish that first part first. And then part 2, in the second part of this exercise, we're going to ask for our needs to be met in this scary place. So if someone in that scary place you've just identified could respond perfectly to comfort you and give you assurance in the distressing place where your thoughts about yourself aren't great, what would they be saying or doing? Now, just because this is where our brains go sometimes, I'm going to tell you some answers you're not allowed to put there. Do the dishes, not allowed to go there. Have sex with me, not allowed to go there. We will talk about that in 2 more segments. There is something, especially in these scenarios, that says about me. So if Chad's in a bad place and feels unlovable, and I have sex with him, there is something that goes, my wife must love me. She's having sex with me, or vice versa. So that can be a comforting tool, but that is still a task. And what we want to do is stay out of the task. It's horrible that I just said sex was a task. I don't mean for it to sound like that, but what I'm saying is that's a different place. That's managing a behavior instead of asking for our deeper emotion to be responded to and comforting. So learning how to articulate.
I'll say this, it could be physical touch.
Yeah.
It could be a hug or a handhold or just closeness or eye contact.
Yeah.
Right? I need you to look at me and say that you understand.
Hold me tight is
Right.
how some, in this
Yeah.
conversation, Sue Johnson, the one of the directors of, or founders of EFT, that's what somebody said in that moment. I just need you to hold me tight. That was that conversation. Learning how to articulate our deeper feelings and ask for our partner to meet us in those places takes practice. So try to complete the sentence below based on the above discoveries. When I feel worst case scenario, I need you to, and then there's that comfort. Once you have that filled out, turn to your partner and try to share what you discovered. As always, withdrawers go first. If this is difficult, again, a slice it thinner conversation. If this is too hard, talk about why this is hard. So Chad and I are gonna model, and what we wanna do is we're gonna slice ours thinner. We have done this material enough that we can go into the very deepest catastrophic fears. We've shared those as we talk through this. I have experience in a previous relationship that it got so bad that we got a divorce. So I do believe that this will end if it gets too bad, worst case scenario. Okay, and both sides of that. So we do have ours, but what we want to do for you right now is tie it back into the cycle so you can see how to take that elevator down. So we'll both share this. So when distress, the first bullet point, and conflict presents in my relationship, my mind explores really bad. What am I afraid might happen if things get worse? I'm afraid that I'm gonna ask too much of Chad, be too much. I'm gonna criticize him at some point so bad that he's gonna go, I don't need this. And he's gonna leave. And he's never gonna come back. Worse even for me is that he's gonna find somebody else. And that's gonna confirm everything about me that I feel. What do I say about me? That I'm just not enough. I'm not enough to keep him happy. I'm not enough for anybody, actually. Okay, that's my first half. That I'm talking about my worst case scenario and what I say about me in that space. You want to do your first half?
Sure.
Okay.
And so in my worst case scenario, it's basically in those moments of distress, I'm afraid that I'm gonna not measure up, right? That I'm gonna not do the thing, I won't put the dishes away enough, or I'm gonna fail somehow. And then basically our relationship will end. And I kind of, that second part of that, the thing I say about myself is, I am not good at relationship, I'm not good at this. I'm not good at being with another person, and it's gonna end, it's gonna be my fault. Because I don't measure up here. Right?
Okay, so once we've identified what those fears are, now what do I need in that space from him? What does he need? Now for Chad and I, we're really big at not placating, and I'm hoping we're trying to help you with that too, right? So I don't need him to talk me out of it. Oh, I'm never gonna, oh, you're not crazy. I know, my freak flag flies high. I know that I'm a little bit crazy. And so for him, I need from him assurance that he can handle all that I am. So for me to be able to say, when I start feeling really chaotic, I just need to know from you that you're not afraid of that and that you're not going to leave me because of it. Do you want to do your side first or show them how to respond?
Well, I think then I would just say, well, thanks for telling me that, and I'm not afraid of it. It's there and I know it, but I like you. I want you. I'm not going anywhere.
Okay. This is a Sunday morning at a lodge and we're doing an experiment here. So know that it is going to be impactful and it's also going to feel weird. And we're used to this and I'm like, yeah, my body takes that in somewhat today. We're in a good place. I can take that in. But how often have I been able to express that to him and him been able to say that to me? Not, I mean, for us more often, but not often enough that my body still doesn't have a little bit of mistrust. And it can go 101 places. And I want to believe you, but I know that I feel like I'm a lot. So we're just in this moment, very similar to open chair, giving our partner acceptance in that space. So partner, if you can respond the way your partner is asking, like Chad just did, I see you crazy and I still love you, then go ahead and respond that way. And if your body goes, I don't even know what to do and I'm kind of panicked, it's okay to also say, thank you for sharing. I appreciate you telling me that. That is, by the way, also partly comforting. We're working on both sides of this. So know that your partner might not be in a space to respond to you perfectly because they're only just now finding out the information about you that you're just finding out about yourself. We might have to take some time to take this in. So either one of those responses is okay, to say thank you for sharing. I really appreciate you being able to share that. And you can even say, this is new for me and I don't think I'm going to get it right, but I appreciate you telling me that. Now that's where we're at in this step. So now he's going to ask for his leaking effort.
And I'm going to make it a little simpler. Like if I was just writing this down, I'm trying to imagine myself being in y'all's shoes. And if I just said, man, when I feel like I'm failing, I just need to know that I think if I mess up, if I make some stupid choice about money or whatever, if I mess up somehow, then I just need to know that you care about me, that you still love me, even if I screw up. You still want me.
2 responses. Let me show you the slice of the response. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate you giving me that insight. That's response 1. Or this response. I do still love you. And I know, we're all human. We don't always get it right. So I know that there are times when you're not gonna, and I only know I still love you. You're still the one that I choose and you're still the one that I
Do I trust that? Maybe.
Now, pursuers to withdrawers. We have this thing that happens about us that goes something like this. If in this moment I tell him that it's okay and I'm going to love him if he gets it wrong, then maybe I'm giving him permission to get it wrong all the time. And so I better also throw in this little caveat that I really still want it, right? Well, pursuers, take a deep breath. You can manage him other times or her if you're the male pursuer. In this moment, try to stay present with the needs of your withdrawer. And it's okay for you as a pursuer to say, this whole entire exercise makes me extremely anxious. That's okay.
Or withdrawer.
No, either
I'm not
one.
comfortable with this. This is hard.
Okay? It's a work in progress. And we're trying to get a deeper longing comforted that no one ever teaches us how to. And we're going to fail at it, and that's okay too. You're not 10 years in. We sometimes try to make this look easy. It's not easy. The first couple of times I did this, I just ugly sobbed and couldn't even talk. So it's been a work in progress for us too.
So again, this is kind of an advanced move. It's after all of this on purpose. We're in a place that's pretty stable. If that's not y'all, and you're trying to do this, it might be hard to do. Or if you're like, you know what, we're gonna try it, you might be able to do it. That's okay too, right? But this is, like I said, I think this is us going on offense saying, I'm done with my defense. I'm done blaming you. I'm done fighting for myself. I'm back to me, right? Anyway, you're going like this, you're missing out.
No, I wasn't. I was wondering.
Like, what you got? But I'm like, this is us trying to go, we are gonna fight for this relationship.
Totally eminent, palms sweaty, oh, here comes mom spaghetti. I don't know, disregard that.
But I think this, it's hard. It's not an easy move, and if you're in a bad spot, it's even harder. We have to stop the bus before we go work on, before we do surgery, right? Like, we have to slow down before we start to go like, I'm gonna show you. Right?
All right, so we're gonna
I'll
give,
come over there as soon as we start. Yeah.
we're gonna
but
give
we
you
gotta
guys 30 minutes for this one. That 20?
get 20, do
20.
Because we're working.
Okay, 20 minutes. So you both have 10 minutes. For all of these exercises, by the way, if you didn't have an in-depth enough conversation here today, you can take any of these and revisit them at another time. So if you only get through the first half, that's fine. If you only slice it thinner and talk about that this is anxiety, that's fine. But if you think you can get all the way through it, go for it. So take, let's say 6 minutes individually and answer the questions, and then take 7 minutes each, and that feels like over managing, but that's just 6 guidelines, just framework. And then share with each other, and we'll kind of keep you guys on task.
Yeah,
Okay,
we're gonna play some music and I'll
here we
come.
go. Conversation forward. And again, Lori, Lauren, Chad, and myself are walking around. If you need us to come in, I'll come down.
I might have paused it.
Yeah,
Sorry, Lauren.
Let us know.
No, I was just